Hello, and Jó napot, is that right, in Hungarian? That's about all I know. It's great to be here with so many people who are passionate about testing. Give me a shout if you're passionate. Do you care about testing? Yes, brilliant. I think there's some at the back as well. Brilliant, fantastic. Great to be here in person. And I will say that if I realised my photo was going to be on here the whole time, I'd have picked a better one. So forgive me for that. They didn't tell me that. So today... That's working, brilliant. Just a very brief bit about me, won't bore you too much. So, you remember the demographic about the age groups earlier on, and there's a 2% one? I'm in that group. I've been in testing for a long time, over 30 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. Currently working at a company called Octopus, based in the UK. And I've done a number of conferences. It's really lovely to be back in person. The last couple of years sucked a bit, didn't it? Now we can be here and generate that energy. I also have my blog, stevethedoc.wordpress.com. If you want to know why it's called Doc, I'll explain later. Got my LinkedIn profile there. Please do meet me. And if you're interested in radio, something I do outside work, I present a radio program every Saturday on a community station. Absolutely love it. That's why I'm flying home Friday and not staying an extra day, because I don't want to miss my radio. So let's get on to testing. Testing. We're going to talk about health checks. We do them for cars. I'm assuming that every country has some sort of check to make sure that your car is roadworthy. We do in the UK. It's called the MOT, Ministry of Transport. And we do them for appliances. You get things like your boiler serviced. And you get them for your bodies. So has anybody had a health check recently, a full check? I did. Anyone show hands? Yeah. Not many people do them. Who's had their car checked in the last kind of 6 months? Yeah. Okay, what about your appliances at home? Who's had somebody come around and check that they're safe, that your boiler's working? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, let's do another one. How many people have had an assessment of their testing processes in the last 6 months? There you go, have a look around. No one, or very few. So, well, we did, and it came up with an idea. My boss was saying to me, why don't we get a test consultancy to come in and have a look at how we work? We got issues with our distributed architecture, legacy applications, you name it. And we thought, actually, that's not a bad idea, because we could get someone in to have a look and do a bit of a dive. So, how did we do it and who did we work with? Well, we worked with a company called Enfocus. I don't know if any of you have heard of them. UK people probably will do. Mike has. Okay, one thing I've just noticed is that all of these things are appearing at once when I was trying to get them to come in stages. Never mind. So we got Enfocus, and we had a consultant called Tony. He worked remotely. He was actually in his villa in Portugal, as he told me a few times when he was doing it. And what we asked him to do was to take a deep dive, look at our testing processes, look at what we do, tell us, with the challenges we have, what he sees, the good and the bad, and give us a report back. We want that independent check. So, his approach, is that going to work properly, or have I got to go back? Nope, that's it. So, he obviously has done this many times, and he said to me, how I like to do this is to have a look at all your documentation. Fine. So I found our test strategy, sent that to him. I've got a document on the role of a tester. What does a tester do in our organization? All those kind of things that he wanted to have a look at. So sent those to him. He then said, I want to interview the testers. Fair enough. And he said, pick a couple of product managers. I'll chat with them as well. Great. And he said, and anyone else who's the next level of stakeholders, I want to do a survey. So I set up a survey for him. And then he was going to collate it all and then send us a report. So we looked at what time should we spend. If we got 15 days, I really don't want to get to day 14 and he says, I've run out of time. Because that's not going to help us. So we sorted out how long is it going to take for him to do each of the tasks. And then he and I had daily catch-ups. We'll work agile, right? So we had a daily catch-up. Just to make sure, well, how many days have you used? How much time yesterday? How much are we clocking down? Are we to time? That sort of thing. Just so that we could make sure that we get to the end of this. So what did that look like in terms of our plan? So first day, well, he did a preliminary day that he didn't charge us for. He said, day one, I start reading. So great, I sent him all the documentation, said good luck, enjoy. And I sorted the interviews out. So I had a list of all the testers, and of course he didn't have access to Outlook and that, so I set up all the logistics. The one thing he did say to me was, please don't book sessions back to back. He said, if I'm talking to someone for an hour, I need 30 minutes to write up what they've just told me. Fair play. So I made sure there were no more than 3 interviews in a day. So he did those from like days 2 to 6, writing up his notes. Meanwhile, on day 4, he'd sent me the questions he wanted to ask the stakeholders. Things like, what do you think is working well in testing? What isn't working well? What are you satisfied? What are you not satisfied? Various things. So I set up a Microsoft Forms thing, nice and easy, sent it out to the stakeholders and said, please fill it in the next couple of days. Day 7 was when I sent all the survey results to Tony, and he took 5 days to go through all of his notes. And there's a reason for that, because you've got a lot of people saying different things, but actually they do fall into categories. So he spent a lot of time saying, well, does that kind of match with that? He put it all together and then produced a report. And by day 13, he said to me, I'm ready to walk you through the draft report. Brilliant. And one thing he did extra, and I wasn't expecting this, and I was really, really impressed. He created a video. And he talked through the background. He talked through, he said, I might have missed things if I've not seen everything, so take it with a pinch of salt, but this is what I've seen. And he said, I've given you the report for people to read, but if they don't have time, this is 45 minutes, they can just play it, and I'm explaining everything. And that was over and above. That wasn't what I was expecting. So I know you're dying to know this. What did he find? Did he find that we sucked? Did he find that we were really, really terrible at testing? The answer is no, which is great. Well, we kind of knew that we weren't doing things badly. I think you know if your process is really poor. But what he said was quality engineering, which is what we call our testing team, they're in a good place. So great, we've got a smiley face there. What was really nice, though, was that the feedback that he got from people was that there was a lot of satisfaction with the way we do testing, but also the testers themselves, their attitudes, how they worked within their teams, their knowledge, their proactiveness. And proactiveness is something I've been pushing and pushing for a long time. If you're a tester not asking questions, what are you doing? You're there to be annoying. One of the things I've said to the team is think of yourselves like an investigator or a detective. You're there to find out things. You're there to ask the awkward questions that no one else wants to ask. So the fact that we've got that feedback, that there's a high degree of satisfaction with testing and testers, means A, they're doing their job, and B, people are so used to it, they don't mind, which is great. There are some improvements. Yes, of course there are. We're not saying that we're perfect. We're not saying we've got it right. And there's definitely things that we can improve on, and I'll touch on those later. Something that was quite a surprise was that we could be stagnating. We didn't have any stretch goals. And whilst we've been trying to move quite slowly, the pace of change is never as fast as you would like it to be. He said, if you have some stretch goals for the next 3 years, that's really going to help you improve. And I'd never really thought that we needed it, but I'll come on to why and how it's been useful in a bit. And he reiterated the 3 main challenges, pretty much as we'd said to him. Our test data. Can I just have a show of hands? Who here really struggles with getting the right test data? Thank you. Really thought I was alone. The end-to-end testing across all our applications and with our distributed architecture. So let's just look into those a little more detail. So the first challenge. This is something that we had to do after when I joined the company nearly 4 years ago. We're still doing it because we have legacy architecture. We have to take a copy of our production data, pop it into our pre-production systems, run scripts to obfuscate that data because with GDPR, I'm sure everyone's familiar with GDPR, you cannot have identifiable names in your pre-production systems. So we have to change everything. And we've got data replicated. So it's not a question of put it into one database and read it. That would be too simple. It's put it there, and put it there. By the way, all the names have to match. It can take about 5 days. That's if it works well. Most times, you're basically saying don't expect anyone to do any testing for 8 days. And if you do, they're going to have to do it in the other test environment that the users have, which will really upset them. End-to-end testing. We have no end-to-end tests because there are systems that we cannot write automated tests for. We've tried. God knows we've tried. We use Selenium and C#, and it will just not read some of our legacy applications. So you do a bit of automated regression, then you've got to manually test something in the middle, and then you've got to automate something else at the end. It doesn't work. So that's a massive challenge. And we have 5 different teams, delivery teams, with testers in them, and they're all just working on their own products. The trouble is, all the products talk to one another. There's nothing holistic at a high level. And I think I was probably aware of it subconsciously, never really kind of pushed it to the forefront. And coming out of the report, that was really key for me. And our architecture, as I've said, it is complex, it's old. We've got third-party controlled systems. We can't do anything with those. We can ask, but we don't have the control. And also, some applications don't have a test environment. We have to test in prod. And this is something that's out there that you can buy. And you buy a service. Why is there no test environment? So, there are 5 key areas. I've lifted this directly out of the slides. I'm hoping the colours haven't worked as well. I'm sorry. It's not very accessible. It's probably better on the big screen. But Tony talked about 5 swim lanes, which is great because we're sitting under an aquarium. Continuous integration as one, and reducing our data dependencies, which we know about. We have to create a lot of test data manually because we don't always have what we want. We weren't focusing enough on automation. I'm just wondering, actually, how many of you are test automation engineers and how many of you actually get to spend the time you should do automating your tests? Can I just ask you, if you do, can you just give me a show of hands? I'd just like to see how many of you actually feel you've got that time. A couple. Maybe a hand, 5, 6. That's not many out of the room. And that's a struggle that we've been facing. As soon as there's something else more urgent, we have to go and deal with it. And that means taking time from automation. He talked about tooling and SDETs. Is anyone familiar with the SDETs? Software developer in test. Yeah, I'm not sure I totally fully agree with it, slightly controversially, but I think you need a tester's mindset, not a developer's mindset. You come at it from a different place. Happy to chat afterwards. So what did it mean for us? So, we need to remove the boring, repetitive, manual regression testing. Yet we know that. And if we don't do that, we're going to end up shipping code that we can't test properly. Or if we spend the time manually regression testing it, we have to ship it later. So we've got to fix that. And we know that involving developers in automation really does work. And recently, I was looking at one of our applications, and I was trying to refactor some of the automation. It's not my skill set, but I've learned enough C# to be able to take someone else's framework, reuse it. And I said to one of the front-end developers, I can't work out how to get this, and this field. Because I'm using, what did I use in the end? XPath, CSS selectors, I was trying everything. I said, look, this is what it's called. This is my code. It can't read it. It is not readable. The element can't be touched with the automation. So he went away and started to rewrite all the elements so that they would be automatable. And he was really keen on it. In fact, he was so keen that he actually changed some things around. And I said to him, that's really good of you. But actually, you shouldn't have made those changes. It has to be exactly as it was before. So he's going away and refixing it. But it means you get the developers involved, makes your life easier. Great. We could use tools to synthetically create our test data. Now that would save us a lot of time because often we have to do it manually. We're not there yet. It's one of those things we want to do longer term, as is reducing data dependencies. So at the moment, if we want to use an API, we have to wait till it's built. So team A is waiting for team B. But what if we made sure that we're using the right contract and created a mock API? That's a good idea. Let's have a look at how we could do that. So that's another thing that we could fix. End-to-end automation, already talked about that, taking a holistic approach. I think that's longer term. We need to get rid of our legacy architecture before we can do that. And building our infrastructure as code is something we could do, again, when we've got rid of our legacy applications. How about spinning up an environment, populating it with that data, and then getting rid of it when you're finished? It's a bit of a pipe dream for us. It's a long-term goal, but it goes back to the three-year stretch goals for us. So, big word of caution. He did say to us, I was shocked by this, but he did say that it can take 3 years on this journey. Now, I looked at this report in January, and I was shocked. It's October. I'm no longer shocked. Things have taken longer than I thought. I guess I was kind of thinking, hey, we could do this really quickly. This would be great. Without realizing that real life gets in the way. It's not just the upskilling, it's changing mindsets. It's changing the focus, but you're still trying to deliver. So you're trying to change a wheel on a car while you're driving it down the motorway. And it doesn't work. You've got to stop every now and then. So it was a good, interesting word of caution. Something else Tony did that I really liked was that he gave us a few other observations. So there weren't things that were massive problems, but things we should be aware of. He did say a lot of people didn't know where to find our non-functional requirements. We've got a lot of wiki pages, which comes up at the bottom. And that's because there are so many wiki pages, no one knows where to find stuff. You do a search and you find a whole load of pages, but hang on, which is the latest one? Which is the most up-to-date? So we've got some work to do. And our user stories are good, but there's always room to improve them, particularly around your acceptance criteria and things. So these are things that we can be working on at a lower level, but they're not the most important things we need to worry about. This is how he suggested that we digested the report. I'm not going to read this to you. You can read that yourselves. But really reviewing, creating a vision, and then getting your stakeholders to buy in. The bit that I will point out is he said decide what elements you want to pick up. Just because I've sent you a report doesn't mean that A, it's all correct, and B, you should do everything. You decide yourself. So I did. And I went to our management team in April, and I thought, you know what, it'd be really good if I just chunked it out. Let's pick some short-term goals for the next 3 months. Let's be ambitious. Let's pick some medium terms and some long terms. And that's how I divided it up. And I thought, well, that didn't quite work as I expected. So we had an off-site afternoon back in April, and I think I spent about an hour and a half. I took elements of the report and some of the video as well to back up what he was saying. And we decided to go with a high-level plan. Not sure how readable that is. Don't worry about it. It just illustrates the yellow ones are the things that were the short term. Blue, medium, and red, long term. Now, if you look at the long-term goals, they kind of cover October. Where are we now? October. That's what it looked like. If I did it again, those dates would be way out into next year. But I was being very optimistic. Underpinning it all was a thing around test automation. And that's what I wanted to pick up first. We had some quick wins, which was amazing. I put some automation champions in place. I said to each team, I want a person who is the champion, who I can go to, and who can actually push for automation within the rest of the team and make sure it gets the focus it needs. First thing was, create some roadmaps. So things like upgrading Selenium, adding accessibility, refactoring. Let's have them all there, and then let's get them approved by myself, the team lead, product owner. So we know exactly what you should be working on. These then get added to the backlogs, and what you get is a bit of improvement. And we started to see that. In fact, last week we had the second round of roadmap reviews, which is brilliant. So that was a really good quick win. What are we doing next? Automation roadmaps for the other products that we didn't do. We picked one from each team, the most important product. So let's roll that out further. We've got to remove our legacy apps. That's not going to happen for probably a few months. So that's why I've said over 12 months we'll do this. Look at new test environments and stubs and mocks for APIs. So what are the key takeaways from this exercise? I would say that we can be biased and blind to what we're looking at within our testing. We might not know that there are problems that we have. So having someone else come in and shine a light in those dark corners can really tell you, did you know that this was a problem? Or did you know this was perceived as a problem by a stakeholder? You get a balanced view. You get what's good, what's bad. You don't just get what's bad, you get a balanced view. If you don't know what you're doing well, sometimes you can forget it and then you don't carry on doing it. Knowing what to improve is a good thing, but if someone tells you steps that you can do to make it better, then you've got a head start. And I found that having an independent report gave me that action plan, and I could sell it to our stakeholders. And on that, we're out of time.
Okay. I am truly amazed. This couldn't, honestly, I don't know how many rehearsals you had to have it this perfect. Wonderful.
I sped up when I saw the time was disappearing.
You still had like 20 minutes, but it was, yeah, fine, let's skip it. Okay, very interesting question straight at the end.
Oh, okay.
At the end, the beginning. How to present, emphasize, or escalate new approaches and smarter ways of testing when there's an opposition against change on the leadership or management style?
Interesting. Just let me take a mouthful of water. How do you get buy-in when there's opposition?
From the management.
From the management. That's a tough one because the management's the people who really you need their buy-in. I would say it's difficult to understand the context how can I answer without knowing what the issues are in the company? Is it your management? Is it overall management? Have they understood the benefits of testing? That would be my approach. So do they understand what benefits you're doing in your role and what your team are doing? And maybe try and do like some presentation. So what has gone really well where you as a tester or your team have made a difference? And share that with the management and see whether that gets them engaged into perhaps making more improvements. But I think you have to find a hook. What is that? Maybe you've saved them some money. Maybe you can point to a defect that, had it gone live, would have cost the company serious amounts of euros, dollars, or whatever. That could be your way in. But happy to have a chat about it afterwards if somebody wants to.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Could you do the health check next time on your own, or would you still rely on an external reviewer?
It's a good question, because I could do it. But actually, the beauty of getting someone outside to do it is it's an independent company with a name. So Enfocus is a known company. When you take that report to someone who's higher up, you've got that name and that kudos behind it. So it's not just me saying it. It's actually backed up by industry experts. So I would say, yes, you can do it, but actually you'd have a bit less gravitas. So for the sake of paying for 15 days consultancy, you probably get something that's more actionable.
Has Tony's health check yielded some results management did not agree with and made them uncomfortable or said, we know about that? How did it go?
There weren't any surprises, because I think we all knew we struggle with our data, we struggle with our environments, so there was nothing that made them feel uncomfortable. The only challenge really is we know we need to do stuff, but we don't have the time, and we're trying to find that time. But no, there was nothing in there that was a nasty surprise, thankfully.
Okay. What was Tony's professional background and why was he fit for the job?
Good question. I think he's been a consultant with Enfocus for many years. He's been in testing a long time. He's probably a similar age bracket to me. If he's watching this later and he's not, I apologise. But yeah, he's had a lot of industry experience, works with a lot of companies, and I think it's his bread and butter. He goes in and does assessments, because he came to me with a list of questions. This is how I like to do this. So that then said to me, you've done this more than once before.
Okay, last question. Did Tony help with modeling the ROI of improvements to help get investments and buy-in? If so, what did that look like?
He didn't talk to us about ROI as such. He basically just said, look, this is what I see. These are the improvements you can make. And it's up to you which ones you want to take. Now, if we'd have said to him, could you help with that? He probably would have done. But we didn't ask for that at the time. I felt because my boss and boss's boss had actually agreed to the spend, we didn't need to convince them with lots more ROI. They know what the problems are. But you could have asked for that.